Well, fáilte is deach music at Maddens. Welcome to Upstairs in Maddens Bar here in the heart of Belfast and to the Snug. I'm Lynette Fay, and each week, Mondays, we drop new episodes of the podcast. And on this podcast, we have conversations with people from the traditional music family at home and abroad from all over. And we hear about their music and just about life. You never know where the conversation might go. And while I have your attention, it would be great if you could do me a wee favour, please. If you could like and comment and maybe share this podcast with your network, we would really appreciate it. We need to get the podcast out there to as many people as possible in order to keep it going. Gur míle maith And with that, let's find out who is in the snug this week. This week in the Snug, we have a singer from County Armagh, Sinéad Willox, whose first album, Seoda Uladh, has done brilliant things for her. Sinéad, fáilte rót, you're so welcome.
Lynette.
I know we say they're the singer from Armagh. The joke is, Sinéad, that your postcode is Tyrone, but everything else is Armagh, and your family went to school in Tyrone, all the rest of it, right on that border region. And this is the album, Seoda Uladh, The Jewels of Ulster, which is just gorgeous. We'll get to this in a little while. Beautiful choice of songs, 9 and 1 for luck, which was a great idea as well. But tell me about singing and yourself, because you went away. We know each other since we were teeny tiny, and went to the Gaeltacht together and all the rest of it. And you left home for a while. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't help but wonder, Sinead, did that ignite something in you? And a stronger sense of home, or did your relationship with home change when you moved away for a while?
I think it does. Being away, it was 16 years, believe it or not. So a long time. And then I think you really appreciate, what you have here as well, and what you grew up with. And there's parts of it that you really miss, and music was a big part of that for me. So. We moved back. We're back now 13 years. We twin girls who are 13, funny enough. And yeah, just I suppose maybe with them growing up and stuff here, it reignites it, and you kind of, there's parts of it that you miss, and you kind of honed in. Certainly the last few years have been brilliant. I'm loving it.
Was it that sense of connection through the music? Because music was always a big part of your life, but particularly as a young girl.
Yeah.
You were flat to the tin. There was music going in your house.
There was.
You were involved in everything in school.
And then about the crib
as well. I know, but it was a brilliant thing. It was like a lifeblood for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I probably would have been a wee bit, later, I taught myself the tin whistle. I think it was P7, going into first year. And then certainly when we went to Donaghmore, instrumental figure Lynette is Helen McCrory in Donaghmore, and she took us all under her wing, and sure brought us the length and breadth of Ireland, Wales, England, and Cór Gaeilge. And really that was a big, huge thing there for singing. And we would have done sang a lot of the old Aisling poetry, Pader O'Dorneen, those type of songs. And it was really her way, I think, of giving back or learning those traditional songs in a different way and in a fun way,
I think the Cór Gaeilge, I'm trying to remember on the podcast here, has it been referenced before? And I think it might have been, but just in passing, Sinead.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind just spending a bit of time talking about
Absolutely.
it. Because it is an amazing thing that maybe a wider audience might not be aware of.
Sure.
And this is St. Joseph's Convent, Donaghmore, County Tyrone, one of the leading grammar schools in the area. Yeah. And you've a couple, Helen Van McCrory, you've just mentioned. Helen McCrory was principal at the time, was she?
She was principal, yeah.
And she took this choir, and you had Brother Lewis there as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, Brother Lewis would have done all the arrangements. So taking older songs, sometimes in unison, sometimes in 2-part harmony, 3-part harmony and 4-part harmony, and all in Irish. And it was just fabulous, Lynette, when you look back, and I guess maybe I am a wee bit different, where I wouldn't have gone to Cultus, or maybe the Flack, all that type of thing. So the sense of community, certainly for me, would really have been on Cór Gaeilge and Donaghmore. We still sing together. Or not tell you how long we're singing together, but we still, we still all get together and we still do bits and pieces. And it was just amazing. It was amazing to be a part of it.
And it's like different generations of young girls as well, because this was going for quite some time. And it's like you say, you weren't a member of Cultus, but you were a member of the Cór Gaeilge, and there's that bond there between you all, isn't there?
Surely. Yeah, it is. Like, girls are great now. Obviously with Helen, no longer being here. Karen, has been conducting that and taking on that role. I would have been the same year as Eva, so Helen and Art McCrory's daughter. I'm very, very good friends with her. And I've tortured them on a couple of things now with the album there too. So, but yeah, we still do a lot together.
That's brilliant. But the songs that you would have sang, I remember the Madreen Rua and the harmonies with that were so exciting, because they were just they're such fun.
Yeah.
Madreen Rua. I'm going to shame myself here now singing, because I haven't a note.
Not a bit.
But I remember you and other girls from the convent bringing those songs, say, to the Gaeltacht with you. And you'd have been singing those even in the house.
Surely.
In the evenings, because that's what we would have done in our spare time. Yes, no phones.
No,
none of
that,
none of that stuff. And we just sat around singing songs. And then learning from each other as well. And I think it was the harmony that I was really drawn to as well. And I think, wasn't it Brother Lewis, he based that on Cór Gaeilge, because he was a Cork man, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And like so intricate now, looking at those, Lynette, we would have spent lunchtime, you'd go and have 20 minutes at lunch or whatever. But it might have taken us 3 or 4 months to learn some of the harmonies, and getting it right. And all the training with your breathing.
Yeah.
Helen would have made you go outside, and you had to hold your, go outside, take a deep breath, hold it for 10, 15, 20 seconds, as long as you could, and then go in, but and perform, But we went everywhere. We entered the Mod one year. She had us over for the Scottish Mod, and we won. We won it. So, but yeah, every year now I was in it. We got the title for the Oireachtas, So
brilliant.
And there was no inhibition. You just do it,
You see, what was that like though then as a teenager? Because the teenage years are exactly the years when the inhibitions
you need it.
Get in on us. Yet there you are, part of a collective, getting up on stage without the inhibitions.
No.
Do you think it was the power of the collective that was strength in that?
Oh, definitely. And like, I would have been very shy, as you know.
Yes.
No, but I would, like, it would have taken me a while, maybe not as outgoing as other, other ones, certainly whenever you were performing. But that, that collective together, there was a real, and then whenever you won, the accolades and stuff, it was an amazing feeling, But sure, she never doubted us. She just, away you go on ahead and get up and do it. And then we did, she would have entered us into different competitions, duet and trio and solo and whatever. So it was amazing.
But that focus of a competition and the practicing for something where you had the end game every year, and you knew you were going to a competition, whether it be the Oireachtas or the Mod, whatever the competition was, wherever it was. There was such a journey involved in that, because you've your practice all year, and then there's the actual getting on the bus and going to the place.
Was the crack,
wasn't it?
We knew now, whenever we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, if you get into the choir, you were going places and getting out of school, and the crack was 90. It was like.
So it clearly ignited something in you for singing and songs.
Definitely. And I still, when you go back to that, or I suppose it's the feeling, isn't it? It's how music makes you feel. But sometimes, it can be anywhere. And when we go into that, there's one particular song, and it's tricky, Annie of Column Kill You, but it's a 4-part harmony and 4-part, 3-part, might be 3-part. But when we do it right, it's a great sense of achievement, and it just takes you to another space, really,
And I suppose being in a choir as well, it's a different version of team sport, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah, it was brilliant. Absolutely
So you
brilliant.
get all that out of it. So from that though, I know whenever you were a teenager as well, you wanted to be, or you were in bands,
I
and there were
was.
bands forming here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like sometimes around that part of North Armagh, South Tyrone was like the battle of the bands. Everybody
Yeah.
wanted a band whenever they were a
Yeah.
teenager. So
Yeah.
what bands did you get involved in?
So the first band I was in was with my sister Neve and James Cook on fiddle, and his sister Helen's in the choir, and Richard Shields, and he's a barrister actually. I still, would see Richard about. I was like, see Richard, we could have went places without Morgan. So it was called Morgan, and it was really cool. It was really cool. I played the tin whistle, did harmonies. Neve was the main singer, and it was like we did a bit of Irish and English songs together. I don't know if you remember
I do.
us with the
Do.
DM boots,
Boots.
Lynette. I'm thinking you're deadly. And Neve had a big double bass, so
Like we're reliving the 90s at the minute, and that was it. Like back to the 90s, wasn't it?
That's it. Yeah, not a bit of makeup in sight, I don't think.
Except maybe Heather Shimmer.
Maybe a wee bit of that. If you were lucky. But yeah, funny enough, we entered a competition, and Cara Dillon was in that. I think it was up in Warren Point. I was maybe 15 or 16 at that time. You're taking me back now, Lynette. I forgot about this. And we got flared, and Cara and the band, I think it was Oiga. Mm-hmm. And they won. So it's funny. Might have been 16 actually. But I'm sure it was great.
But it's all around that same time, and it was an interesting time.
We did some Clannad numbers, I think, too.
But sure, of course you did, because you were brought up in that in the house as well.
Yeah,
you mentioned your sister Neve there.
Yeah.
Like I know Neve really well at school as well. We were in a band together. And that sense of growing up at home. But
Surely.
Yeah, because the music was always in the house with you and Neve.
Absolutely. Now, we would have fought the bit out if I was out of tune on the fiddle, or,
You'd have been told.
Flat, would you do this or whatever, But great memories too, great, absolutely great memories.
The teenage years, because I remember talking to Cara Dillon about, being in the bands at that stage of life, mid-90s, early 90s even, and the political landscape here, it wasn't what it is now.
No.
And the fact that we were getting our parents to drive us to all these places to get involved in competitions and be going through checkpoints, and we didn't care. All we saw was getting to the competition because we wanted to get on stage, because that was the most important thing in life.
That's right. Slogu actually is where I remember you won that. I remember that. Deadly harmonies too now.
But it was all of that, and we were just so you were so addicted. It was so addictive as something to be part of, and being in a band. There's just such a rush from it.
Totally. And I think no inhibitions. Do you know? You just went for it, didn't you? Just should try this and give it a whirl, and see how it goes. But it's great. The determination as well is fantastic too.
And thankfully, absolutely no social media, so there's no evidence of it. Very few photographs, no recordings, nothing. Doesn't exist, but all exists to only hear in memory.
Absolutely.
And firmly through those rose-tinted glasses. I think that's the best part about it.
We have our own narrative about it. Yes, I like that.
But then, fast forward then to coming home, being away, then moving away for 16 years, coming home, your twin girls are born, and then you have you were finding a pathway back into music. And I think, did that come with the local Amdram scene first?
So I think when we first moved home, obviously having the twins now, that put a bit of manners in us, That was
a bit of a handbrake there,
Sinead. A handbrake there now for just a few years, Me and my husband are like, and I was like, this is it, like, but so yeah, probably a wee bit of a moratorium or whatever the name is there for a while. And then Jerry, we'd done a couple of wee dramatic, things within the community, and Jerry Cunningham had said, can't remember, was I, not ABBA. No, it was ABBA. A centenary. There was a centenary performance, and then he had asked me to get into that, and then we had asked us then to get into Blood Upon the Rose, But it was a great way for Johnny. Johnny's my husband. Sorry, it was a great way, to meet people here that maybe weren't just connected with me or whatever, So sure, we had great crack. We're 10 years at Blood Upon the Rose doing that.
Just let's explain Blood Upon the Rose, because it's a bit of a phenomenon.
It is.
And again, Jerry Cunningham, who you mentioned, is another phenomenon.
Armagh man.
And some man, and he's an Armagh man, very much an Armagh man. But in Clonmore, you have this, and again, we were talking to Fra Fay recently on the podcast.
Unreal.
And he was saying, like, he tries to explain to people in London or wherever about this amateur dramatic scene that we have locally in that corner of the world, be it North Armagh and South Tyrone, and people can't get their head around the fact that there's this world-class productions happen completely on an amateur basis.
There's something in the water,
there's something in the water, but it's the drive to be as good as you can be, the drive to say this is what we're doing and we're thinking big. And this story, Blood Upon the Rose, so let's start with the story of it's a musical.
It's a musical drama, and it's based effectively on the love story between Grace Gifford and Joseph Plunkett back in 1916. And there's funny parts of it, obviously, as well. So you have like lots of light and dark. But Jerry wrote that back in 2000, must have been 2016, actually. And then we took it to Armagh, was the initial kind of stage with that. And, we had all of our neighbours, people that you've grown up with, and then lots of people, just lots of, different people around the local areas. And then it got a great response. And then we've taken it everywhere. Hammersmith, Apollo, the Olympia in Dublin, I'm trying to remember now, Armadillo over in Glasgow. It's been an amazing journey altogether, and it's still going. We're Grand Opera House now in January next year. So I'm Countess Markovich. Jerry always casts me as an angry woman, so but it's been a real honour, and we're both in that. My husband plays Michael Collins, so it's been great. It's been a great wee journey altogether.
That's incredible, from such a small pocket of the world to bring something like that to life in the first place, and then on to some of the biggest stages in these islands. It's unreal. Just something else. What's it like to be part of that?
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I said to Jerry one day, I said, I want whatever you have for breakfast in the morning. So it's phenomenal. And I think certainly even that whole process kind of ignites, there's nothing really quite like whenever you come out, and we were in the Waterfront Hall, and you have a standing ovation and 3,500 people, and it's like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's something special here. Absolutely. But also then, does that give you the confidence to think about what you want to do? And, where did the idea for Seoda Uladh come from? The Jewels of Ulster, the album that I have here by Sinéad Willox, if anybody's watching on YouTube, I have it here in my hand. Because you hadn't recorded any music before. All of a sudden I started seeing like videos on social media that you were getting back into music again, getting back into singing again, and using that gorgeous voice that you have.
Sure. I suppose maybe like 2019 onwards, I had a wee notion it wouldn't go away, and I'd always wanted to do an album. This is like on the bucket list. Maybe whenever you hit 40, Lynette, something happens. And I was like, right. And I had the idea then to do a song from every county. And yeah, it just kind of happened. And it happened really like organically. I didn't rush it. It was probably in the 2022. I was looking at this the other day. I was looking at an email. And I'd tried a couple of studios, whatever, to get into, and then Seán Óg tortured him for a wee while, and we really took our time. So it might have been like one song. I think the first 3 songs were at the tail end of 2023, and then the final product wasn't until finished there until January, the previous year.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually do anything with it then to the November, which is mad, but
you sat on it for a while.
I sat on it.
But when you're wanting to put something like this together, where did the idea come from? Why did you want to focus in on the traditional songs of Ulster?
There's so much like richness here, I think, and I love the idea of, I suppose, like a musical map, a musical map of Ulster, and in my head. I wanted maybe some of the songs to people would know them, and I know different people would know them, but some of them I'd researched and wanted to give it a bit of a wider audience, if that makes sense to you, and then just have the complete variety. But I just thought it was a cool idea to do one from each of the counties,
and one for Belfast.
One for Belfast. When I say like jewels, I guess the songs really hone into if we've some jewels, like our mountains and the rivers, the places, the people, and songs are a part of that too, Lynette. In my, and certainly in my view, or what kind of draws you back in. So, and I think like even the County Down one, that Tommy Sands song, there's something about going away and being away, and you can put on a song, and it just brings you back, even if you're missing home for a while, and that was part of some of the process.
I think it gives you a feeling, especially that song, the County Down. Not from County Down, but what a song, what a county anthem to have, and really just such a well crafted song by Tommy Sands, and he just proof of the poet that he is. And I wondered then, whenever you must have had a number of songs from each county.
I did.
These are obviously the final selection. Which songs just jumped off the sheets that you had, the lists that you had made when you made it into the studio, into Banview Studios with Seán Óg Graham?
Definitely My Belfast Love from Finbar McGee. I just love that song. I absolutely love it. Boohol on Earn, and I've spoken about this in another interview. That was a song that we'd done in the we'd performed in the choir, and again just the feeling of that. And another favourite's Glanton Glasgow Door, Francie Mooney, or Countless Summers and Maharorty, really, I guess it's the feeling. It was the feeling that some of those would have done, but there's certainly
something about Glanton Glasgow Door, and it gets in under the skin. As a song. You don't have to be from the area. It doesn't have to be. I don't know. It's just, maybe it is because of the melody as well. That it's Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore.
Absolutely.
But then whenever you understand the words as Gaelic, that's even, it gives it even more importance and even more fuel, I think. And the songs in Irish there as well. Is that coming from the Cór Gaeilge days? Was that important to include songs as Gaelic?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, wanted to do that. And and I'm loving doing more and more Irish, stuff. Obviously it's been a wee while, but I definitely wanted to include both.
The Gaelic way I got to go now.
Get a bug, Lynette.
Get a bug. When you know, but the Gaelic way I got to go now, Sinead. So we can't wait to see what comes out of that now. If you're revisiting Irish, maybe, and getting into it a wee bit more, that'll be interesting now to see what's next in that wee journey.
Absolutely, I really like it.
I love it. Dobbin's Flowery Vale, was the Armagh one a difficult decision?
No, and I looked at loads for Armagh. But that one just really, I kept coming back to it. Kept on being really drawn to it. I love it. Absolutely love it.
So bringing the songs to life then, we've mentioned that you went into the studio with Seán Óg Graham up in Banview. What was it about Seán Óg that made you be persistent, let's say, to make sure that you got that slot with him? Because he's not an easy man to pin down.
He's not, but you know what? He's a genius. He's an absolute genius. And so sound to work with. Honestly, I had the most loveliest time with him and Eve, and plenty of rounds of sandwiches out of New Well stores. Go on, Dylan Cushley. I had Dylan tortured. He's like, "What are you looking now?" And I says, "I need more sandwiches for these musicians." But it was just a great. He knows what he's at. And just quite really encouraging. I was like, I'm totally newbie to this, And he's like, it's great, don't worry. And it was fabulous.
But yet the response you're getting is
I know, I'm overwhelmed.
Is brilliant. but and rightly so, Sinead, because you have this, jewels of Ulster. You've got this jewel of a voice as well. And when you were bringing these songs to life, then you surrounded yourself by the best of the best of musicians. Can you tell me how you put the backing group, if you want, together? And I'm really going to enjoy when she drops the names here.
Torture might come to it, God. Do you know what? I'd have been wild nervous even saying to some of the girls and boys, whatever. So I don't know. I suppose since I come home, going out to the John O'Neill Festival, I would have just been sitting there in complete awe of these masters at their craft, and we talked about feeling, earlier, and there was on one of the concerts, whatever, Cathal and Stephen and Niall Murphy had, did Mountains from Rye, and sure, you're just transported, like
it's
you're
the
just
Bow
Brothers,
yeah.
So I knew I could hear it in Glasgow Door, and I'd kind of put down some of the melodies initially, and then you had like something to work with, depending. It was a mixture of how we recorded, and I could hear fiddle and banjo. So I'd obviously asked Cathal, and he said no problem.
That would be Cathal Hayden, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, no less than the king himself.
Absolutely.
She went straight to the top.
And then Shimmy O'Dowd as well came on board, and then Pádraig McGovern, got him for the Sweet Home of Tyne for the pipes, Kieran Leonard percussion. Now some of those tracks would have been done, and then they would have been able to do those remotely, but you could hear different things. I don't want to leave anybody out in case I do. Who else did I have? Conor Cribbins, flute, amazing fella, deadly crack too, Conor. So he was able to put it on, and we did different versions and that type of thing. Obviously, the Cór Gaeilge ladies, and amazing harmonies from Daniel Donnelly. And Daniel and I would have been in the show together, Blood Upon the Rose. So I've tortured him for a few years. We've done a couple of wee bits, and yeah. He came down for that.
No wonder you're incredibly proud of the album, because to get all those people together, to get them to get to that, they had time in their diary to get them into a studio, and then to launch the album, you decided to do a live show in the home place, in Seamus Heaney home place in Balahi, with the whole gang.
Didn't want to leave anybody out.
I know, but it was an amazing feat to get everyone together there. It was a gorgeous place as well. Why did you choose the home place?
I chose the home place because I loved the backdrop to that, and Heaney. Also I love the fact, Heaney's own poetry and how he kind of navigated a path that was different really at the time. He's gone. He's gone for to do that. So really the history and stuff behind that, I thought. I just wanted to do it there. It's
perfect place then.
Perfect place.
Yeah.
Perfect place.
And then to get everybody there on the same night, again, no mean feat to pull that one off, Sinead.
Not at all.
And are you doing this all yourself, or do you have help?
Not at all. No, doing it all myself. I said to Pádraig McGovern, it's like jumping, diving head first with no armbands and seeing how I'm going. Oh my goodness. But I would say, two anchors really, with the album, and that's David J. Bell, the guitarist. He's been amazing, and a great support, and just great at keeping you going whenever you want a retreat sometimes, and so talented. And Rory Madden on keys, just really, really sensitive player, really delicate. So sure is still torturing the pair of them,
in great company. And when you pull off a launch like that, and sending your album out into the world, then what did you make of the feedback, everything that came after that? There's the time then where you sit waiting to see, will there be other gigs, will there be follow-ups, what happens now? Yeah.
If I'm honest, I'm overwhelmed by the response. I really am. I laugh, like I was like, this is my, I kind of, I'm delighted. I'm not saying like in any bad way, but I just I'm so grateful for the response, honestly. and it's brought so many opportunities. I'd said this year, I would, all guns a-blazing now, September, October, November, whatever. So we've got more concerts coming up. We're heading to London, Birmingham, and it's flying, Lynette. It's absolutely flying, and I'm loving it.
Did you ever imagine 13 years ago when you moved home with the twins that this is where you'd find yourself, and I suppose there is a wee bit of daring to dream and daring to fulfill your dreams of, being the singer, coming, putting yourself out in front of the collective where you've always been part of a bigger group, but now it was time for Sinead to come forth and for your voice to be heard on its own. Why did it feel that now was the right time to do all that, Sinead?
Probably I would say maturity, as well, and also, why not? I don't know. You're never too late to do whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
And I do think that. I think sometimes, certainly, there's a bit of imposter syndrome goes on, now and again. But certainly, I think, with the show, and kind of that confidence or whatever, you just said, right, well, sure, we'll go for it. And I do have to say, we did a single with Copper Rose, the band that I'm in, with Claire McChrystal, Damien Cullen, Gerdy Thompson, Emer Graham, Seán Óg's sister. And we did a couple of things back 2023, 2024 as well, and we'd released a single. I'm sure we had great crack with that, absolutely great crack with that. So just getting yourself out there, and the response has been great.
Recording all these albums recording all these songs about Ulster and focusing in on your home province, has it changed and being so involved in the music scene at home as well, has it changed your relationship with home?
Definitely, I would say, for sure. And a part of it, you want the girls to be, to experience this, so we do we go to the papers on a Monday night. We started off at Skull Torrent out in Donaghmore with Claire McChrystal, and then they were going to St Catherine's, so we moved then to papers in Armagh. Which of course now they do both. They don't want to give it up, So it's just that whole. It's a way of life, really. It's in your DNA, and it's amazing. It's amazing what we have on our doorstep here, really.
There's a lot of people think that they're absolutely crazy, like, and wouldn't understand it. This idea of, Monday night is Armagh Pipers night.
That's it. 2 hours. Non-negotiable in our house.
That's it. And we've had people sitting here in the snug who it's maybe taken 2 hours to drive to Armagh for the 2 hours, and then an odd 2 hours home with no homework done, nothing done, all the rest of it, the sacrifices that were made just for those 2 hours of tuition. What do you see that the girls are getting out of that?
Do you know what? They absolutely love it. And I have to say, powerhouses, Ethna and Bren Valley, like total powerhouses, and giving back, to everyone. But, at the beginning, when we went, I used to walk the dog. Actually, I used to take them on Monday night and walk the dog. And then there was one Monday, and Ethna said to me, "Do you not play anything?" And I said, "I played fiddle years ago." And, get on up there. So I started doing the adult classes then with a couple of the fellas, and Niall Hannah's daddy is there as well, Jim. Brilliant, the crack we have, honestly. And at the beginning, I'd have been doing it, and I was like, I'm so embarrassed, can't do this properly. But it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. You bring them on, and then you're able to sit with the girls and play with them and do a couple of wee tunes and help them, So Amelia's on the banjo and Evelyn's on the flute and whistle and
brilliant
and all. So
okay, so the family band's coming on.
Family bands, we're working on it there, Lynette. Yes, we're working on it. Retiring shortly,
That's it. Mummy on fiddle, and we've got flutes, banjos, Auntie Neve then, and on piano. I'll tell you, it's all happening, Sinead.
The last night we were at Hayden's, Jerry Lappin. He plays over in papers as well, but he said to me, "Where's your fiddle?" I was like, "I'm not taking my fiddle out in here now,
He must be joking.
Exactly. So I need to speed up a bit. But no, it's great.
Do you think you'll get to that point where the confidence will come where you will take it out in the session? Yeah.
It will.
Good fun.
We bit of working to do yet, like, you know, sing a song handier.
But the side of it is there, and fair play to Ethna Valley for putting you back in that class as well. Good woman, Ethna. She put it up to you. What's next for you then? Because I know you mentioned there just in passing that you have a couple of gigs coming up in the autumn, but they're big enough ones. There's one in London.
We're one in London. We're going to Hammersmith Irish Culture Centre. Birmingham, Norton's, and then there's a Tottington as well. And then we're back. We're Streel Arts Centre. I haven't confirmed these. And then we're going to go to Cavan as well in September. So
fantastic, Sinead.
So the idea is to do one in every county. Every county.
Fantastic. Sure, maybe we'll see you in Maddens here as well for a song or two in the next few months. Are you looking forward to the Fla?
Can't wait. Oh my goodness. Cannot wait. A couple of tickets booked now already. And I'm delighted. Absolutely delighted. It's here.
Oh, here it is. It is most definitely here. I know. This tsunami's just about to hit the window here. Maddens might be standing when it's all over. Anyway, come here. Great to talk to you.
Great
and thanks so much for coming in. Congratulations on the album, Sinead.
Thank you so much.
Seoda Uladh is out now, and catch up with Sinead on socials for details of all those upcoming gigs. Gurmaig, Sinead.